And here's one of the more of the musical exercises. And this is a rhythm guitar example over a form which is called 12 measure blues. It's also called 12 bar blues. In this free segment of the lesson, you're going to learn the first part of it, and pretty much if you get this technique down, you'll be able to switch between phrases, figures, and chords, at least what are called power chords, probably a lot better than you did before. And if you haven't done this, you will basically be on a fast track to learning this. The paid part of the lesson, I go over the whole form, step by step, along with the backing track included, the full 12 measure backing track that's about 3 to 5 minutes long for extended practice. But there will be the backing track for the first part of this, and if you pay attention, it will make that paid part of the lesson a lot easier, just learning these steps herein. You're going to hold your index finger down on string 5, fret 2, and you're going to pick string 6 open, then that fret 2 note that you're holding down with your index finger. And now those X's on strings 4, 3, 2, and 1, you're going to use the index finger to kind of barely mute to where when you scratch those strings, it's not going to make a sound. So here it is in audio and video. All right, string 6 should be clear, string 5 should be clear, string 4 muted, string 3 muted, string 2 muted, string 1 muted. All right, I'm going to demo this again, but what I want you to look at is, first of all, my index finger, I'm kind of, I guess, rolling it and using kind of the side of the index finger to dampen, and then I'm using the fingertip on string 5, fret 2, kind of even the side of that fingertip to hold that note down so it's clear. So string 6 is clear, string 5 is a nice clear ringing note, but strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 are muted, totally opposite. So let's do that again. Remember, you can always pause the video and restart it. And let's do it again. All right, so now we're going to strum all of the strings, string 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. However, we should only hear strings 6 and 5 ringing out loud and clear, and strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 should be absolutely deadened and silent, not even a squeak, just maybe a scratch. But the idea behind this is you get the attack, like that nice aggressive attack by hitting all the strings at once. Trying to just nitpick and only play strings 6 and 5 and miss, it lends to a much more timid and actually weak attack of the strings. So we're going for big sounds here, and the way this is accomplished is that we just hit all of the strings at once. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Okay, so this lesson, what we just did, cannot be skimmed over. You really need to get this down pat. That is, being able to get nice, clear, ringing tones on some strings and then completely deaden other strings with your fretting hand. Definitely, this will open the door to playing actual songs a lot more convincingly. And remember, these drills here and exercises are easier than songs, so failure to get these will be a failure to be able to play songs convincingly. So it's really your choice whether or not you want to skip over this or not and dismiss it as too easy or not necessary. But in my experience of playing guitar since 1984, I can say that this is a very crucial part of rhythm guitar technique that cannot be skipped. Take it for what it's worth. All right, now let's apply this technique and play all triplets and do all downstrokes, hitting all strings. And you don't really need to hit the strings as hard as you were earlier. But just make sure you hit all those strings at least. And remember, strings 6 and 5 ring out as clear as a bell, and strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 are muted dead completely. 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let, 1 trip, let, 2 trip, So now we're going to insert the 8th note rest in the middle on the trip. So 1 trip, let. The trip is going to be covered with the hand. And this particular timing application was covered in lesson 1.2.4 on rests. 1 trip, let. 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let. All right, so again, these examples are at 40 beats per minute, so each click is at 40, and so we're counting the triplet, basically 1 triplet inside each click. So you can do this by setting a metronome yourself. Actually, I recommend doing that, stopping the video, set the metronome, tap your foot on only the clicks, but count the triplets out loud while you play that rhythm. All right, let's take a look at this next chord where it changes for the first time. I call these transition exercises, and you just loop them. So they're basically like transition loops. Remember we had 2 chord loops in the chord studies? Well, these are basically transition exercises or transition loops. So what we do is we loop where it changes. It stays the same. Then there's one spot where it changes, and we loop the previous part with the new part and just do that over and over again, so that way the transition is smooth. All right, let's look at this new diagram. So it's kind of like the first one, except this time we're picking string 5 open, and our index finger is now on string 4, fret 2. We are going to be muting that 6th string with our fretting hand thumb to where it's going to be dead, just like we did the previous exercise, and then we're still going to use our fingers to mute strings 3, 2, and 1. And another very important housekeeping note, we're actually intentionally playing with bad thumb technique on purpose. It's just the only way to do it really with effective muting. So all the fancy thumb positioning we had for playing those chords and the chord exercises, that's out the window now. So it's okay to have the thumb and the thumb muscle kind of cradling the neck while you're muting notes. Notice that string 5 open and string 4 open should be ringing out as you're picking the muted notes of strings 3, 2, and 1. I may have even forgot to explain that when we did the first one, but the idea is this. Whatever notes are not supposed to be muted are supposed to be ringing out. So even though you've picked those strings that are supposed to be ringing out, the ones after them that are muted, although you're picking those muted ones, those other ones still need to be heard ringing and sustaining even while you're picking those muted notes. That's another very important point. All right, so let's do this again, keeping all these things in mind. Let's go ahead and strum. So with this chord, again, we're hitting all 6 strings, but only strings 5 and 4 are heard sustaining, while all the other ones are deadened with the fretting hand thumb and index finger. All right, so the way we get those nice aggressive rockin' tones is by hitting all 6 strings. So just nitpicking around and, trying to miss the strings that aren't supposed to be making sounds, so that you're going to be playing timid and the rhythm won't be played with any type of, I would say conviction would be the proper word. So that's the deal. You mute the strings that are not making a sound with the fretting hand thumb and index finger in this case, and you want strings 5 and 4 to be loud and proud, and you just lean in to all 6 strings while you're playing, with only strings 5 and 4 making those tones. All right, we're going to move on to transitioning from the first chord to this second chord we just learned. Okay, so this is going to start with just the fretting finger only, the fretting hand. We're going to move from string 5, fret 2, to string 4, fret 2. So try to keep your thumb on the neck. Don't remove your thumb from the neck when you move your finger. So keep the thumb behind the neck as an anchor, and then just move the finger. Here it is in the video demonstration right here. So remember, it's fretting hand only, not the picking hand. All right. Now we're going to incorporate the picking hand. All of those things we're going to keep in mind, and you can use these diagrams. I'll display them right here. So remember, when we're doing the first chord where it's string 6 open with string 5, fret 2, the index finger is going to be muting, the index finger of the fretting hand is going to be muting strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 as strings 6 and 5 ring out like a bell. And then when you go to the next chord, which is string 5 open, and we're holding down string 4, fret 2 with our index finger, the fretting hand thumb is going to be brushing string 6 so it doesn't make a sound to where it sounds dead, and the index finger is going to be muting strings 3, 2, and 1 as was the previous chord. So a big part of playing with authority has a lot to do with the fretting hand, how it's muting and what it's not muting, and then the overall attack with the pick, hitting all 6 strings but with only a few choice ones ringing out. That's the way you do it. All right, so we're going to look at the next transition. All right, so here we have the middle finger holding down string 6, fret 3, and the skin of the middle finger, as it's holding down string 6, the skin is going to incidentally brush string 5 to where string 5 is muted, kind of like the same thing you were doing with the index finger on the previous ones, but you're going to use the skin of that middle finger. So the middle finger is doing 2 things. It's getting a nice clear tone on string 6 fret 3, and then the skin of it is brushing on string 5 to where it's muted. Okay, and then the index finger does the same thing it did previously. So it's just dragging along strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 at the 2nd fret as you're holding down that 3rd fret note on string 6 with the middle finger. Let's practice. All right, so remember, let's do this again. Remember, while string 6, fret 3 with the middle finger, when that note rings out, while you're picking those other muted notes, that note still needs to be heard sustaining over those muted notes. Let's do it again, keeping that in mind. All right, so we're going to hold that string 6, fret 3 note down with the middle finger, mute strings 5 through 1, and we're going to just whack the hell out of that note, man. We're going to hit all strings at once and get that note ringing out loud and proud. Let's do it. All right, so we're going to do now the transition between the 2nd chord, that's the chord that had string 5 open, and to this one we just played, this note. So we're going to be bouncing between those two with all the muted concepts in mind, the wrong thumb technique, all that stuff. All right, one other point that I'd like to emphasize, do not go to the next transition until you have that other one nailed, clean. So if you have skimmed your way up to this point and you don't have that 1st chord down, if you don't have that 2nd chord down to where it's loud and proud and all the other notes are muted and it doesn't sound sloppy and you're able to attack all the strings successfully like that, don't move on to this last one we just did. If you feel that you have and you're honest with yourself, congrats. Anyway, we're going to move on to the 3rd transition from that 3rd fret note back to that 1st chord we did. Here we go, right here. There are no count-ins because these particular exercises do not focus on any timing. In fact, the only ones that really did matter timing-wise was when we were on that 1st chord doing the triplets with the muting. But all these ones where we're doing the transitions and the finger muting stuff, don't worry about the timing. Right now we're focused more on technique over timing, and then eventually it's going to be all timing. But for now, you don't have to play in time with me on the video. I'm just giving a demo of what it should sound like. So by all means, stop the video and try it for yourself and really be honest with yourself whether or not you're nailing it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to play the 1st chord we did, the 2nd chord, that 3rd fret note, back to the 1st chord. We're just going to loop it. And again, it doesn't have to be in time for now. Just get the idea of it. Again, if you're having trouble with these transitions, here, I'm going to do a video demonstration. Just do the fretting hand only of where the fretting finger should go. So on the 1st chord, your index finger's on string 5, fret 2, then it jumps to string 4, fret 2, then your middle finger goes to string 6, fret 3, and then your index finger goes back to the beginning on string 5, fret 2. Here is the video demonstration. And again, it doesn't have to be in time. But again, this is fretting hand only without the picking hand, just getting used to plotting the points out All right, so now let's do it again a few times in a row. Again. Again. So before we go into Grooveland and putting all this together in time, let's get this technique solid. So keep all those things in mind. Your thumb, it's okay to cradle the neck, the hitting all of the strings with authority, but making sure all the clear notes ring out true, and the ones that you're supposed to be dead are dead. So in other words, it's let your yay be a yay and your nay be a nay in this case. So really nail that, make sure that's together, even do the fretting hand transitions, and we're going to now put the back part of the riff in time based on those transition exercises we just did. All right, so here's the main riff, and then we're going to go back to that transition exercise we just did, but put it in time in the context of the main first riff. Here we go. So all of these transition exercises that we did are going to be put in time, so that way there's a meaningful musical phrase as a result of all the technique we just did. So there is a payoff for all of this. So the key is to get everything sounding clean, attacking all strings with that pick, playing it loud and proud, muting where you have to, and not muting where you're supposed to be fretting and getting nice clear tones. So, that said, we're going to put the back half of that riff to where it goes back to the beginning. We're going to put that in time because that's where the core of all the transitions are. And we're going to put this all in time now. All right, so let's look at the notation here. So, the first chord comes in on the let of count 3. On count 4, we come in on the second chord, let that ring out into trip. So that's 2 eighth note triplets that are tied into each other. So you're striking on count 4, and then the tie is into trip. So therefore, you do not pick trip because it's 2 eighth note triplets tied. Now, on the let of 4, we pick that third fret note, and then we land right on count 1 of the next measure on that first chord. So we're back to the beginning. We're going to practice that transition over and over and over again. 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let, 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let, 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let, 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip. Trip. All right, so again, keep all the preparatory things in mind even before you even attempt just that exercise we just did. So, do the fretting hand only transitions where you're moving from the first, just the fretting hand movements only without using your picking hand on this exercise we just did. So just move your finger from one string to the other where it's supposed to go. Do that first. Then work on the technique where you're just not even focused on timing. You're just focusing on getting clear tones out of the 3 chords, right? And then you put it in time in the exercise we just did. So it may take a lot of stopping the video, rewinding the video, all kinds of things, just using your own common sense with the metronome, counting, all of those things. So let's go ahead and try to play through the riff. And again, if you don't get this riff right away, just keep going back to those transition exercises and all the preparatory stuff, and you will get it. So the idea is that we want to play this riff 4 times in a row, nonstop, with all clear ringing tones and without any slop, where we don't hear any of those strings that we're supposed to be muting. We don't hear any of those strings ringing out as open or fretting them down as other notes. 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let. All right, now let's put that riff to a track in a realistic situation that we would encounter if we were playing with a drummer and a bass guitarist. And another notational thing, these are called repeat signs. So you see how I have that arrow from the let of 4 going right back to 1? That's basically my own shorthand, meaning that you just loop the phrase and you go back. Now, looking at what the formal musical notation example of that is, you see these double vertical lines at the beginning of the measure and the end of the measure with the 2 dots inside of them. Those are called repeat signs. Typically, what that means is that you just play that particular phrase twice, unless otherwise noted. So do you see how I have 4x? That means repeat 4 times. So you see those double bar lines on either end with the 2 dots, and then the 4x means 4 times, because without any other directions, it just means to play them twice. So those are called repeat signs. The 4x means repeat 4 times. 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let. All right, let's play it with just the track without me being your tour guide. And go ahead and go for it. 1 trip, let, 2 trip, let, 3 trip, let, 4 trip, let. All right, that about does it for the lesson. The paid lesson, I go through that whole entire 12-bar blues form at the beginning of this video, and I'm actually going to play it again. And a lot of step-by-step. I have a full transcription of it that's available, so that whole lesson is available for a $25 donation. I worked really hard on it, and I mean, this lesson alone has been a half an hour, and it just takes a long time to even make videos like this. So, any donations are appreciated. The $25 donation for this full-on blues rhythm guitar lesson, an introduction to it, learning the whole 12-bar form, being able to play over format. You also get the a good 3-minute backing track with that for practice, in addition to the transcription. And you can even use this for a performance piece. So, in the other lesson, the playing by ear lesson, we have a backing track for Happy Birthday. So you can play Happy Birthday, and you can play a blues tune once you get it going. So there you go, performance pieces, practical applications right there. Have a great one, and we will continue.